We get tons of requests for me to take a look at some music from so many different video games, but one that keeps popping up that you guys have wanted me to check out for a while is the soundtrack from Doom Eternal. I have not heard this music before. We're just gonna dive into it. We'll break it down a little bit and talk about how it's constructed, which hopefully I can hear. And you guys will come along with me on my first listen to this soundtrack. Oh, okay. Oh! Wow, this is super cool. So if you guys have ever watched me talk about anything from sort of the metal, prog metal sort of genre in the past, you'll know I'm a huge fan, and it's some of my favorite stuff. I love this type of stuff because of the syncopation and the rhythmic feel. To me, when it comes to distorted guitars, it's like there's nothing more boring than just like a steady backbeat and things that just kind of like sit right in the beat. Da, 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 da. I don't know what sounds like that, probably nothing. But like the stuff that's just not that exciting. You know, and it's so much of the time I feel like it comes down to dotted notes, right? And so if you're unfamiliar with music notation, I'll give you a little secret. If you've ever been confused by what a dot does to a note, it's really simple. Ready? A dotted note simply adds half of that note's value to it. So if you have a dotted half note, you're just gonna add half of a half note, which is a quarter note, to that half note. So it's almost like you were taking a half note and a quarter note and tying them together. And if you do it with a dotted quarter, then you're gonna split the quarter in half, in which you get 2/8. And then if you add 1/8 to that quarter note, you have basically the value of 3/8 notes. It adds half of whatever note is dotted onto the end of that note. And what happens is when you have a bunch of dotted notes lined up together, you wind up pushing this almost as like a different pulse on top of a pulse. So like, let's listen to the guitars right at the beginning here. Okay, so we know our pulse is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? However, the guitar, if we were to pulse out where the guitar is kind of playing that cadence. Now, there's a couple little stutter steps that help it line up a little more, but let's just listen to what that guitar is doing. Right there. Da-dum, bum, 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 bum. If we took this, bum, 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 right? We have that pulse sitting on top of 1, 2, 3, 4, bum, 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 right? What that is, very simply, is just dotted eighth notes. Let's take a look at this on staff. So if we simply broke down our 4/4 measure into quarter notes, we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if we broke that down into eighth notes, we'd have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Let's go down one more and break it up into 16th notes. Now we have 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1, right? Let's go back to our dot. Remember, our dot adds half of the note's value. Whatever note is dotted, we're just adding half of that note's value again onto it. So in this case, we're talking about dotted eighth notes. Let's break an eighth note down so that we can figure out what is half of an eighth note. Well, an eighth note's made up of 2 16th notes. So that dot is going to simply add the value of 1 16th note. So every dotted eighth is essentially like playing 3 16th notes just tied together. So remember, we had our tempo here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then when we add our 16th notes, we get 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. So what if we divide those 16th notes up into groups of 3? It sounds like this. 1, 2, ready, and da 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 da. And then if you listen to the track, ba ba ba, right? And there's a little stutter step right in there, but you can hear what I'm talking about. Bum 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 bum, right? Against that 4/4 feel. That is so sick, you know, and it's a great way to create a really interesting, almost a polyrhythmic feel, right? Where we have these 2 different pulses on top of each other without making it sound too hard to listen to, or not hard to listen to, but a little bit complex to understand. Now, if we take this to the extremes, we can get really cool things like phrases that permutate throughout a measure because you're layering one section over top of another section. We did a video a while back on one of my all-time favorite progressive metal bands, led by my good friend Misha Mansour, Periphery. Now, Periphery has some really cool music that does some of this stuff with these incredible polyrhythms, layering pulses on top of each other and creating these rhythmic figures that permutate throughout a measure. Now this is done in a little bit of a simpler context in the sense that it lines up closer with just this 4/4 straight ahead beat, so you can really feel it and keep track of it, and it's not too confusing. It's a great way to include some really intelligently written rhythmic complexity without making it too difficult to follow for the listener. That melody is really, really neat. So we've established we're in this E-flat world, right? Something like that. We're floating between E-flat and E. Very common thing for this type of sound, right? But then is that what I heard? Let me listen to the melody again. You would maybe expect that this being such a dark, like, right? What a description. You think that having this sort of E-flat world, E, you know, like you would expect maybe a minor thing, but the melody tells us that's not what's happening. Woo-hoo-hoo! We end up in E-flat major here. That is so cool. Yeah. Yes. Ooh, wow. Oh my God. There's that dotted eighth kind of allowing itself to just sit there, bop, 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 against the pulse, right? And there are some stutter steps, but that helps it sound even cooler, right? Because it'd be one thing if you just left it on the dotted eighths and it just kept floating through the measure, and you never kind of, every once in a while it might meet up. But like if you keep adding those stutter steps, bop, 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 it keeps shifting where that dotted eighth is falling, and that makes it sound even cooler to me. Okay, right here, there's a couple of instances right there of something that I think is so cool. Sometimes when we are young musicians, young composers, as we're writing and arranging, we forget to utilize some of these really, really effective things in our writing. And what I'm talking about here is something called playing over the bar line. I'm gonna put this into the context of jazz for a moment, but if I had a tune like, if I play all of my lines within a bar, it sounds really, really boring. You know where this is really a problem for young musicians, and I'm speaking from experience myself, but when we start playing things in odd meter, when we start playing in 5/4 or 7/4 or 11 or something crazy like that, and you haven't quite grasped the feel of that particular odd meter, we have a tendency to play in such a way where it's like we're trying so hard to keep track of where that one is that we wind up playing all of our lines where it very clearly comes out on one, or we somehow land on one so that we're mentally keeping our space, keeping our place in the measure so we don't lose where we are. But then what happens is as you become more comfortable playing an odd meter, you start to feel a little bit more freedom, and you start to feel this opportunity to let your phrases go over top of the bar line into the next measure. And what that does is it sounds much more natural, because that's how we would naturally phrase our lines. We're not necessarily going to start and stop everything within a specific count, whether it's 4, 5, 7, 11, doesn't matter. If you play in such a way that you can float over the bar line, your stuff's gonna sound much more natural and much more interesting. And what we're hearing in this section is a fantastic example of exactly that. Letting these rhythmic, disjointed, syncopated feels just float right over the bar line. There's no connection on the downbeat. Listen to this. See how? One. The guitar line, the rhythmic line that's happening there, that syncopated cadence is not landing on the one and surrounding the one, thus propelling one measure into the next and making it feel like this one super progressing, forward-leaning motion. It just draws you in and keeps the flow just punching forward. It's fantastic. There we go, right. That is so sick. Hey, before we continue, I want to let you know we are releasing a brand new mega sale today. For a very limited time, we have created an Improv Essentials bundle. It contains 3 of our improv-focused courses: our Intro to Improv, our Making Sense of Modes course, and the Improv Obstacle course that's brand new, just released on the Academy. And you can get all 3 courses, which are valued at about $270 if you bought them outright each, for $99. That's over a 60% discount. So if you've ever wanted to start learning how to improvise for a very limited time, probably just for a couple weeks, you can get access to all of our improv-focused content so that you can get started in learning improvisation. You don't have to have ever improvised before. We will start from the very beginning with the Intro to Improv course, and from that, you'll learn how to start playing, start improvising today. It's one of the very first things you do in the course. And then we talk about all kinds of different things. There's tons of exercises, tons of practicable examples, downloadable resources, PDFs, backing tracks, you name it, it's all in there. And from that, you move right on to Making Sense of Modes. Add even more context so that you understand on a deeper level what your options are with harmony, all kinds of stuff like that. And then once you've done all that, move on to the Improv Obstacle course, which is the brand new offering from the Director of Jazz Studies at Purchase College, my professor, David De Jesus. It is a fantastic way to explore new ideas in improvisation and give yourself ideas on how you should attack different chord progressions. You guys, this is a massive discount, $270 value for $99 for a very limited time. Click on the link in the description below or go to cornellmusicacademy.com/improv-essentials. This pricing will go away, so be sure to take advantage of it now, and it's the best way you can support this channel and what we love doing, which is creating this type of content for you guys. So thank you so much for your support. Let's keep going. Again. So we have the exact same thing going on. Our tempo is 1, 2, 3, 4. Our eighth notes are 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Our 16ths would be 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. And again, the dotted 8th feel. If you divide those 16th notes into groupings of 3, we get ba 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 ba. And that's exactly what we hear at the beginning. Check it out. Pause. Line it back up on the 1. That's textbook, dotted 8th feel. So effective in music like this. That is so sick. Oh, yeah. Little hesitation. I love the blend of synthesizer with guitar. It sounds so great. Yes! Ah, it's different the second time. Oh, what a sound. Whoa! Woo! Okay, this is really interesting. First of all, I think we're mostly dealing with fifths, like power chords, right? But the really cool thing to me about this is, like, I feel like with this genre of music, oftentimes we don't necessarily hear a lot of chords being played because there's so much distortion. If you started doing things like playing chords that have a fifth and a third, like you get into these areas where it's too muddy. You can't have that amount of distortion and have a bunch of interesting color tones together. It just doesn't really work. Now, fifths are a really good option to use for that because they are very clean. Because the frequency rub is very smooth. There's not a whole bunch of rub there in terms of the pitch it, right? So we have this fifth. We can move them in parallel. We call that parallel fifths if you're just gonna move everything as a fifth. right? No matter what you're gonna do, okay? We call that a parallel fifth motion. What I'm super curious about is what exactly is going on chromatically here. Because normally we've been hearing just like kind of a single note line, and now we're hearing almost harmony, which with a guitar, of course, there are harmonics, overtones, things that are always there within each string that you might not hear super definitively, but they're there. So it helps this whole thing ring even more, and it almost makes it feel like there's more harmony here than there actually is. Check it out. I don't have the rhythm quite right, but I think that's the motion there. That is super cool. We're just taking advantage of all these parallel fifth motions using chromatics, and it just gives it this super daunting, powerful sound. It is so cool. You guys, how is it taking me this long to listen to this? That has got to be one of the coolest video game soundtracks that I've heard. It's like so different, right? Because so many of the soundtracks that we look at for harmony. We look at for the complexity, or rather even maybe the hidden complexity of certain video games. And there's so many that do that so well. This is just an all-out, brutal, syncopated rhythm fest, and it's awesome, and I love it. Thank you for the recommendation. I really appreciate it, because this was a blast to listen to. What else should I take apart? What else do you want me to check out that I haven't heard yet? Feed me those recommendations in the comments below. I would love to see them. And don't forget, we are running for a very limited time the Improv Essentials Bundle. Get 3 courses valued at $270 for just 99 bucks. That's over a 60% discount. You can get Intro to Improv Obstacle Course, and Making Sense of Modes. If you've never improvised before, this is the package you're gonna want. It'll take you from the very, very beginning all the way to some more advanced concepts that you can practice for life. I promise you, the things that are included, the exercises that are included, the backing tracks and the PDFs, all the downloadable resources that are included in these courses, you will be able to use for the rest of your life, and you will use them to practice and get better as long as you are playing an instrument. So be sure to take advantage of that at the link in the description below, or go to cornellmusicacademy.com/improv-essentials. This pricing is only going to be available for a limited time, so please take advantage of it now, and it's the best way that you can support the channel so that we can continue doing what we love to do, which is creating this content for you guys. So let me know your other recommendations in the comments below, and by the way, do not forget to check out the brand new episode of Odd Time. There is a link right after this. You can check out all of the brand new episodes. We've just been getting started with the podcast, and it's such a fun time, so I hope you guys will check that out. Maybe consider subscribing to the Odd Time channel. Once again, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for taking the time. I will see you in the next one.
You can tell how frequently someone goes to Outback Steakhouse by how high their jeans are on their body. I once saw a man at Outback wearing his jeans so high he was looking through his zipper. See the greatest...